Hey, what's up, space pirates, rebel scum, and kids alike, and welcome to a Nerdy Bunch weekly review for Star Wars Skeleton Crew. My name's Dave, and joining me due to the peer pressure of trying to please a friend, my co-host Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
What's up, David?
You're here out of your own will, right?
Of course,
Right?
completely.
Right?
I don't succumb to peer pressure, right? I'm not always trying to be the best because you're always trying to make me the best and pushing me to record multiple podcasts in one day. What?
At all hours of the night or
Shut
morning.
down.
We're here to talk episode 6, titled "If Andrew messes with me, he'll have 0 friends again." Oh, got him. Relationships fray under the pressure of a difficult journey. Andrew, the key moments of this episode. Jod goes through a trial. The kids split up, leading to great character moments, which I think is like the crux of this episode is more of a character focus for the kids. All the craziness has been going on. And this is like a moment to kind of like slow down and kind of like, whoa, what's happening right now?
Get to know them a little bit more.
And it ends with a very adventurous escape. Spoiler free, what did you think of this episode?
I'm not sure this is my favorite episode of the season. I'll say it was up there for me. Kind of purely because it starts to delve into the character dynamics of these kids. I feel like we've gotten a slice of their personality, but in this episode we see them group up in specific ways that kind of pushes them to one step out of their comfort zone, but also address some of their own shortcomings. And I think it's always nice to see when I say like a kind of coming of age growth and in these kids. And honestly, I think the kid actors are doing a great job. Judd as well, Jude Law. He's we all know he's a great actor, but he's definitely like he brought his all to this. He's not like half-assing this at all. But I think the dynamic with him and the people that he interacts with in this episode, no spoilers, is one very reminiscent of Johnny Depp, Jack Sparrow to me a little bit, but in a good way. It's not like specific parallel, but I just mean like a pirate carrying his own amidst a sea of others. That makes sense a little bit. And I really enjoyed it. But what about you?
I enjoyed this episode because I think, like I said earlier, it slows things down a bit and it lets the kids kind of have character moments. I think one of the issues I have with TV shows is when it doesn't allow characters to slow down and have moments, right?
Yeah.
Especially like sci-fi action shows like that. They always focus on the spectacle and they never give time to like the nuance, the moments, the characters. And I appreciated that a show like this allows for that, especially with a show with kids. Sometimes they may not want to allow for that because they're worried that the kids might not be able to carry
To
the
portray it
acting moments,
well enough.
right?
Yeah.
And I agree with you. The kids are very good at that. I think there's a maturity that shows to them, and even the characters, right? The things that they deal with to have these moments, it's very mature moments for the
Very
characters.
much.
And it's something interesting we do with kids, right? Kids at the same time may look at the world a certain way. In terms of, in certain moments, they may look at the world as black and white, but in
Yeah.
certain other moments, kids can be honest in the way that, as grown-ups, you kind of
Adults
admire.
can't.
Right? You feel like when grown-ups have issues with each other, these issues that are minor can be prolonged for years,
Yeah.
decades. Whereas as kids, we can like, okay, let's address it now because
Yeah.
they don't have decades of backstory of issues to carry. So I kind of liked that aspect of it. And I think I agree with you. I think Jude Law does a great job in a show where he could have just given half of his
Yeah.
ability and it would have been
Yeah.
fine. You can
Yeah.
tell he commits to it. And what I like
100%.
about his character is that his character keeps you guessing throughout. Like, what is he about? Right? You think
Yeah.
you know, and then
But
something
you
else
don't.
happens. You're like, okay, well, what is he about? What in a good
Yeah.
way? You're not
Yeah.
thinking like, I don't know. It's just like by design. Again, we know it's not spoilers. No, he has many names, right?
Yeah.
Many aliases, and so because of that, you're not quite sure. One thing we can
Who is
say
he?
is that his allegiances are just out to him.
Yeah.
If it's to anyone else, it'd be in the moment, right? But overall, it's to himself, and in a good way. I don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, which I think is
Yeah.
great. and I like that about his
Still,
character.
I'm on the fence for sure.
Right, right. And so the mystery of doesn't just lie in what's At-Aten. It's not relying on one mystery throughout the whole thing. We've kind of
Mhm,
figured out what At-Aten is now at this point.
mhm,
Now it's the why and the how and all that other stuff. And I
mhm.
enjoyed this for that. And finally, I think it's not spoiled to say because it's going to be the thumbnail of the front cover. I felt for various reasons, KB was a character throughout that we didn't really get to know. She didn't
Yeah,
have as much focus, and this
yeah.
episode kind of gives her more focus. I know a lot more about KB now,
Mhm,
what she's about, what's her thinking, what kind of personality she have. I know that now.
yeah,
And I thought
yeah.
that was a great that's what I loved about this episode. And I kind of appreciate I don't mind that they took a while to kind of get her because she's always been in the background through this show.
Yeah.
Other characters had more focus, but I appreciated learning about her and just learning more about not just her, but her as like a part robot, right? Having
Yeah.
augments to her,
Augments,
on
yeah.
right,
And why she has those and
and
what
why
they
she
do
has
and
this,
the
and
effects, yeah.
exactly, and how it's perceived. And I don't think it's spoiled to say like I like how it's treated as having that friend who has some kind of a physical disability, and
Disability,
how
yep.
and how do you treat them? How do they want to be
Mhm,
treated? I think those
mhm.
I love this episode because it was kind of focused on that. All right, let's go into full spoilers. I think we'll start off with the child of Jod, aka Silver. I loved when he gets out. He's like this typical, felt like Goonies,
Mhm.
covered in all the jewelry,
All
Mr.
the
T
jewelry.
style.
Yep,
Mr. T reference is showing my age. If you
of
understand it,
course.
it shows your age too. So don't come at me. Um,
If you don't, 18.
I liked when he's just like, because now he's a captain. He's like SM-33, go. SM-33
Sure.
is like
Like,
taken out
immediately
instantly.
taken out, like, immediately, like
But fun fact, he's hidden with ion blasters, and ion blasters, all they do is disable technology. So he's not
Mhm.
dead in a robot
Yes.
style. He's
Stay
just
stay tuned.
exactly. And we see them we see them drag his body away as well. They don't
Yeah,
just leave the body
it's in
there.
some, like, I think they threw him in some heap of robots, I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken,
yeah.
maybe? Or maybe,
Exactly.
yeah, he's coming back for sure.
And I want to talk to you about Judd's appeal. He gets one chance to appeal, the pirate code and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. He gets the right of last appeal. This is something we've seen in many pirate narratives, most famously, like you've said in the Pirates of the Caribbean
Pirates of
movies.
Caribbean, yep.
And he gives us this speech about finding the gold and how nobody wants to go hungry. This guy even wants to start his own company and
Mm.
all this stuff. And everyone's like, yeah, and he shows him the proof. What did you think of his speech? And if you were one of those pirates there, would you have kind of been lured by it?
I thought it was a good speech, especially because he had the proof of the coin, right? Obviously, the words alone would mean nothing, but like
Mhm.
he actually could show that, like all of them understood that was an old Republic coin. And I think if I'm not mistaken, one of the pirates had seen it with one of the kids or something. I think
Yes,
so.
yes,
Like
yes, yes.
it tied in, right? So it wasn't like, oh, this guy made up the story. It's more like, oh, okay. And even what's the name? Wilco. I don't always forget the wolf's name. What's wrong with me?
Brutus.
And Brutus, right? Because even he was like, "All right, let's go find out, right? And if not, we're throwing
Mhm.
you out, right?" Like he wasn't. No pirate is just gonna automatically say no,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
when
yeah.
you've kind of shown them proof. Like, like we discussed, the pirates' number one truth is treasure, right? So he's shown
Uh-huh.
them treasure, and honestly, I thought it was a good speech. That's one of the better final words that you could have in such a scenario, right? Like again, worst case, they I don't know waste some fuel and ransack a random planet and throw him away. I don't think they're expecting him to escape, but of course, as we know or expect, him being Jude Law, he's definitely going to have a great escape moment. How that happened, we don't know, but I feel like I too would have been like, there's no point not chasing down this lead because, like I said, the proof is in his hand. He's shown the coin. We saw the coins with the kids. All right, let's at least investigate, right? Like there's not much to lose, but there could be a lot to gain. And again, he did come out with lots of jewels, right? Like when they captured him, it's not like he was looking ragtag, beaten up, right? He showed evidence of, since we last saw you, you now have more gold, and you've secured some bag. Like, okay, fine. Let's see what else you have under this hood of yours. So I thought it was a decent speech. I think if I was them, I too would be like, yeah, let's at least chase down this lead and see what's up.
I think part of it, what helps him is the fact that they saw the kids. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
if the kids weren't part of the narrative and he came to them and said, "Look what I found," they still wouldn't
No,
believe him,
it could
especially
be fake.
because
Yeah.
exactly, especially because the first episode he leads them to treasure and there's just one
Mm.
coin. They go, "What is the
Yeah.
same coin? Huh? What is the same
Yeah.
one coin?"
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think because they saw the kids, they're like, "Okay, maybe he's onto something." And I
Mm,
like,
yeah.
the constant, it always remind us there is no loyalty amongst the pirates. The loyalty
No,
is the
it's all
gold,
about
it's the treasure, right? Everyone's
money,
like,
honey.
"Whoa,
Money, honey.
Brutus, relax. This guy
Mhm.
could give us money. All right, let's just
Yeah.
see where that goes." Yeah, they're
And
not
even
gonna
Brutus,
throw
he
it.
wasn't like Brutus didn't really argue, right? He was more like,
Right.
"Oh, okay, let's go.
You
Let's
know,
go
you know,
see.
I'll
If
still
not, you
punch you
walk
in
the
the
plank."
stomach, all right? I'll still
Yeah,
punch you in the stomach
right.
and
Get
show you
my
that
free hit.
right. But and I'm curious to see where this goes again because we have now the Republic, right? We see the X-wings later on. We'll get to that. They're involved and everything like that. So in terms of, I feel like there's going to be a big kind of standoff, right?
Mhm.
Everyone's going to arrive at the same time. We don't know
I
what's going to
agree.
happen next. I think we have 2 more episodes to go. I
Mhm.
feel like we're going to get next episode at the very least. We're going to get more on
Mhm.
what's happening with the parents. So I
Yeah.
still think that's very small, a minimal.
Yeah.
And then final episode, this huge standoff between everybody
Yeah.
coming together.
Yeah.
And I still don't know, where do you think Jod kind of lies? Like when it comes down to it, is he taking the gold? Is he siding with pirates? Is he siding with the kids?
It feels
What
like
do you
one of
expect
those
and what do
where
what do
he's
you hope
yeah,
for?
I feel like he's for the gold, but I could for sure see like a character growth moment. You know, all those like left or right, where left is take the gold and run away, or right is, save the kids. And I could see him making the choice of save the kids, just kind of because of the type of story this is.
Yes, yes.
But I still feel like his initial drive and his current drive is going to be, treasure, right? That's
I want
that's what
treasure.
that's what that's what the Pirates is about. But I just don't know that from all we've seen from him, I'm not convinced he's all fluff, right? If that makes sense. He's not completely devoid of emotions. Let me put it like that. How that manifests, I'm not sure. Because one thing you mentioned, I think in a previous podcast, is this show is it's like weirdly cliche but not cliche. Does that make sense? It's like, yeah, so there are a lot of tropes that they follow, but it's not necessarily following the like exact formula you expect, right?
Mhm.
So honestly, I could see him flying away with a bunch of coins and
Right.
disappearing, and he's like, peace. But I just feel like he wouldn't necessarily put the kids in
Jeopardy.
harm's way,
Yeah.
yeah, or jeopardy, right? At least not voluntarily, not intentionally, right? I
Mhm.
don't see him as evil or bad, but yeah, it's one of those where like I'm leaving with something, right? I
Well,
ain't
I could
leaving
see
empty-handed.
well, that's the thing. I could see him having best of both, where
Mhm.
he's running away with the treasure, but the pirates have the kids, right? And then John's like, oh, goes back for the kids, loses the treasure, saves the
Treasure,
day,
yeah,
but then
and then
secretly
ask for a ransom.
he saved
Um,
the bag. No, he saved the bag. He didn't give, it
oh,
makes it
right,
seem as if he
fair,
gave
yeah,
everything away. He's like, well, I have
yeah,
one bag left or something like this. He
yeah,
kept something for himself,
yeah,
right? And I know that's a trope in itself as well. We've seen that many times. But like you said, I
yeah,
think this show uses tropes, but in a fun way, right? And
yeah, in a good
it
way,
doesn't feel tropey. Yeah,
yeah.
and here's my question to you as well. Good or bad, regardless of how he turns out. I ask you this question every week. I want to see if your feelings have changed. Is Jod force sensitive?
I don't know. I just felt, anyways. I guess it's one of those where we've seen him in scenarios where I almost expect him to have used his force powers, if so, but
Mm,
also not, because there's there's no he's a smart guy, right? From what we
mhm,
see,
mhm,
he's not just going to randomly do a force push and then get blasted, right? So it's almost hard to tell because I feel like I need to see him. I need to see him use these powers on something not metallic for me to be fully convinced that it's not some sort of like gear attachment. But then, I'm still just like the first time he was in the prison, like, did he have anything on him? Like, what is this appliance or device that he has that they let him have in jail? So
mhm.
I, I'm still honestly on the edge, which I still think is a good thing about this show, right? They're kind of
Yeah.
playing that one close to their chest, which I like. They're not necessarily giving us too much to let us decide one way or another. And
Mhm.
it's weird. I'm not often on the fence or I'm undecided, but
Yeah.
I'm really not sure. It could be both. It could equally be both, right? He could be
Agreed.
an ex Jedi or semi trainee or that never finished, Padawan, whatever. Or he could just be a guy who has some, come here magnet
And the thing is,
device on him.
we've seen that in Star Wars before. We saw that in
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan, right? We
Yep.
saw someone pretending to have Force powers. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
outside of the realm. But I agree with you. I like the fact that it's ambiguous and
Mm-hmm.
all the clues could point us in either direction, which is great
Yeah.
because you can look back and be like, "Oh, that's why he isn't," or "That's why he
That's
is." So,
exactly.
yeah, yeah, and I
So
really like that. All right, let's talk about the kids. I think this episode is an episode that really focuses on the kids' perspective and the kids kind of getting to bond in a different way. They're split up in unlikely pairs. You
mm,
know, you usually have KB and Fern together and Wim and Neil together, but now we're split up into KB and Wim
yep.
and Fern and Neil. And part of the
Yep.
split ups because, you know, KB is kind of questioning Fern's leadership, right? And Fern doesn't want her leadership questioned because I think she's so used to being that kid that kind of is so good at everything, does everything right. The school says you're the best, the mother says you're the best, even though she's not trying in those regards to be like the best student. I
Uh-huh.
think that pressure is all on her. That's why she wants to be captain. And we saw in previous
Yeah.
episodes when she feels like she's failing as a captain, she kind of regresses. And I think part of this episode is her trying to overprove herself as captain. Like, I'm making the right decisions, even though she knows some of the decisions can be questionable. And
Yeah.
this is the first time you see it where when you have groups of friends, you always have like sometimes there's a hierarchy, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
this
Always.
this kind of showcases where KB's always been the yes person to
Mm-hmm.
Fern, and
Good friend.
KB's
Yeah.
at this point is just like, hey, like I could die,
Yeah.
like
Like
you're
I
not
can't do
thinking
that.
about right, you're not thinking about me. And I alluded earlier, I think their narrative is so great because it's that reminder, when she says to Wim, KB thinks I can do everything. She doesn't look at me. And sometimes we think that's a good thing, like, oh, my friend or someone I know, uh, because of an accident has this kind of
Yeah.
disability, but I'll treat them as normal. I'll treat them
Yeah.
just like everybody else. And this
Exactly.
story says, well, that's not necessarily a good thing because now
Yeah.
you put pressure on them to have to keep up with everyone else in ways that they couldn't. And she couldn't
Yeah.
even say no when she knows that, hey, going through the water will mess up my circuits. But she's a friend, I'll do it, whatever. What did you think of that aspect between the relationship between KB and Fern?
I think I really liked it, like you said, how though we didn't see much of KB, and this episode kind of made it make sense. Why, right? Like she's, I guess, a shy personality who also has this augmented disability thing, and she's been trying to not disappoint Fern almost in all of her
Mhm,
actions. So she intentionally doesn't like push back, but
mhm,
the one time she does push back, like, it was so funny when she agreed with Wim.
mhm. Wait,
Everybody
what?
was like, "Wait, what?" Like, wait, what is happening here,
Mhm,
right? But I mean, his plan wasn't terrible, but still, I think it was more the idea of showing Fern that I don't always have to agree with you. And like you said, they're kids, and some of these things, then maybe as adults, you'd be better with expressing yourself or saying no to things. I think we all kind of learned that as we grow up, learning how to say no and when to say no, and even knowing your own limits. But it's interesting to see, how it played out with KB, and I thought it was super cute how Wim, essentially figured out MacGyvered how to help her,
mhm,
fix her chip or whatever. And she ended up, at the end expressing to Fern. So I love the trajectory. Long story short, right, of just
mhm,
showing going from, you know, she's not like she's a yes man or yes woman. She was more like a silent agreeer.
mhm,
Right?
mhm.
But then seeing that she actually does have a voice, right? She actually does have thoughts. She's not just somebody who's just going to go along with the plan, especially when it could
She's
put her
not
in
a
peril.
robot,
She's not,
right?
right? I think that's and you're right. Maybe like they started to look at her almost like a robot just because of the
Yes.
augment. Like it felt like like RoboCop, honestly, like to
Mhm,
a
mhm.
certain degree, right? Of just like, oh yeah, she can do anything, right? And
Yeah, you're
don't
fine.
worry about it, right? But I mean, it's also not quote unquote Fern's fault, because we've seen this in friendships. It's like
Mhm,
until or you owe your friends to tell them when you can't do something, right? Or to let them know that I'm unable. And it's more like if you don't say anything, I'm going to assume that you're cool with this, right? But I just love that it was a learning moment for all of them, right? For all the four personalities, and I think I love the way the team was split in those two groups. It was a great way to kind of almost force them to when I say come out of their shells or just show their shortcomings a little bit more. Even when Neil was walking up the ladder with Fern,
mhm.
and he's like, I can't climb like you, like
Your
like I
spider
love
legs.
Neil. Yeah, just spider, like so funny, right? But I think that was a great moment for Fern to actually realize too that, oh, okay,
A
I
real
need to,
captain.
well, I mean, she's not obviously, but yeah, a real captain would understand, the
Yeah.
shortcomings, pun intended, of each of your members and the strengths, and I think this is what we kind of see, Fern, I guess, slowly coming to, and again, semi cliche kind of a trope, but we love it when they both apologize at the same time. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, no, I love you, oh my God, but it was just great. I thought it was a great way for the friendships to grow. And just to show again that she has a mind. She's not a robot. She's not an android. She's not an AI, but she does have shortcomings, and
Mm,
she needs to be treated a certain way. But she also needs to learn how to speak up, right? And
mm,
not just go along with things for the sake of not disappointing Fern, because yeah,
mhm,
quote unquote, not even what Fern asked for, right? She's just doing
mm,
what she knows. That's her personality. So yeah, I liked how KB's story kind of expressed why she was quiet, why she had a lot of these like silent moments, but the fact that those she's probably afraid a lot of those times, right? Like both
mm,
afraid and not wanting to disappoint Fern. But
mhm.
like I said, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, I think it was a great way to kind of showcase the characters, like you said, like the fact that everyone apologizes at the end,
Uh-huh.
because even KB becomes aware of her own shortcomings of
Yeah.
not speaking up, of not because sometimes, like you said, sometimes it's on us to kind of speak up and say something and understand that if someone's a good friend, they will understand, because she even mentions why she was worried about saying something, which is the title of the episode. I'll
Uh-huh.
have zero friends again. And then Wim's like, I'm your friend.
Yeah.
And I love when Wim says that because he's not saying it in a way that's like, let me make her feel better.
Yeah.
It's in earnest, like,
He's
but
like,
wait,
oh,
Neil and I are
actually,
friends.
yeah, yeah. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. Huh.
What are we,
But
chop
but
liver?
I thought
Like,
exactly literally.
so I love that movie. And I kind of like how, you know, this whole season, Wim's been trying to be this, what he feels is the makeup of a hero, the
Uh-huh.
Jedi, the hero.
Uh-huh.
Even he's the first one to grab the lightsaber and just hold it up like a hero. But
Uh-huh.
I love this because this is the true hero moment, right? That it's not necessarily about the fight. It's about
Uh-huh.
being there for your friends, right?
Uh-huh.
Even when KB says to him, "Thanks, Jedi," and he's just like, "That's you acting like a Jedi.
Yeah.
Finally, you're acting like one." And I love that. And I even love the fact that even though it turns out that Fern was right in the way to go, why do I always choose the wrong people
Very good
every
people,
time?
yeah. That was so funny. She's just so trusting and such a big heart.
But I think him being so trusting and having that kind of openness will serve him in the long run. That I
I
think he
think so
doesn't,
too. I
he
think
doesn't
so.
lose that.
Yeah.
But I also think with Fern, even though she's right, I think part of that is learning that as a leader, just because you know the quickest way to get from A to B, doesn't necessarily mean that's the best way for everyone because you want everyone to arrive safely,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
You may arrive safely, you can
See,
climb
but
up that hill, but
yeah.
Neil can't climb.
Yeah.
So she has to
And
now
you have to be
think of,
aware of
okay,
that.
I've got to think of what's best for everybody and
Everyone
how
did. Yeah.
everyone can kind of make it together as opposed to
Uh-huh.
just about me. And I love that kind of she gets to that resolution by helping Neil.
Yeah.
Um, I did like the visual of how I think the VFX in the show are fantastic. I like the
Really, really
visual
good. Yeah.
of literally getting into KB's head and just like the way she kind of like switches off.
Shut down.
Ah,
Yeah.
if it was me, I'm sorry, I would have freaked out a bit more than Wim because like my hand is inside your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's in pretty deep inside too.
Yeah.
It's not like just at the back. It's
No,
like
it's like inside.
almost to
Yeah.
like, I don't know, to jaw.
Yeah.
I love that visual.
He handled
Um,
that well.
he definitely did. I also like the visual of the kind of like space crabs, that giant crab. Fun fact, that was stop motion and it looked fantastic
I heard that, and I feel like you can always not you can tell, but like in
in a good way.
retroactively, you're like, aha, no wonder it looks so good.
I feel like one of the hardest things to do in computer animation is no matter how good the textures and lighting looks, if you get the weight wrong, it just looks off. Like the
Mm-hmm.
walking weight or the jumping weight or just the movement. Does this look bulky? Whereas stop motion, because there's a physicality to it, you get that weight, right?
Yeah.
And and
Yeah.
and I think in time that kind of jitteriness that comes out of stop motion in a situation like this almost serves it well because it gives the
Mm-hmm.
alien nature to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I thought it worked really, really well. I
No,
liked it a
I
lot.
agree. It looked awesome.
I did like when what's his name? Wim's like, "Oh, did you come with me because you believe in the trash crabs or you just mad at Fern?"
It's like
Um,
you know the answer to that deep down. You know the answer to that question. Let's just skip past that.
any other
It's
moments that
okay.
we haven't spoken about that stood out to you?
Yeah, just the escape, right? The final escape from the trash
Yes. Oh,
compactor,
yes.
and
Let's
finally
talk about
pushing
that.
pushing
The
the
button.
DD button.
You were happy about
uh,
that.
finally get to
It
push the button.
That was interesting because I don't recall ever seeing anything like that in like any sci-fi
Hmm.
where, and it makes sense, right? It's almost like a hull that's there to
Yeah,
hide the ship. Because I'm sure
yeah,
that ship's recognizable in its final form because it looks really
mhm,
slick. I'm sure people
yeah.
recognize it. So it's like that's probably why SM-33 was like, don't press the button
Something, yeah,
because people would recognize the ship, right?
yeah,
And that's also why it looks all broken down and raggedy. That's probably again by design,
yeah.
right? But I've never seen something like that where a ship can shed its skin. What did you think of that whole sequence with like the trash compactor just chewing it up? It's a Star Wars thing, getting almost chewed up by a trash compactor. We saw that in the
Hmm.
original movies
Yeah.
with Luke, Han, and Leia. And so, what did you think of that? And it's like the release out there. This is
And
the crew without any adults
yeah.
showcasing that they can manage the ship.
Oh, I love that. Like again, ode to original Star Wars. But yeah, the visual of that by itself, even all things aside, was just really cool, right? Just seeing like, oh, that like yeah, the releasing, I guess, of each of the latches or whatever, along the hull, and then ship is beautiful too. Like it's just a
That's
very,
great.
you said, sleek and sexy thing, and I really like that. And even just yeah, the whole process leading up to it, because we knew they weren't gonna die, obviously, but we're still
Yes.
wondering when they pushed the button. I didn't know what exactly to expect,
Yes.
which is what I found interesting. I was like, is it gonna like I don't know, shoot a
Shoot
laser? Like
missiles
yeah,
or
like what specifically? So I like that, and that's what we spoke about. Like though there are tropes that are kind of standard, there's still things that surprise me with this show. Where I'm like, I definitely had like a kid moment in those like what 15 seconds of like, oh wow, like oohing and eyeing at that experience. And yeah, I feel like it was also like a great way to cap off we spoke about this I think 2 or 3 recordings ago of like the kids hadn't seen like real danger, like real peril, and even before like they kind of saw danger and peril with SM-33 or with Jod, whereas now it's like this was all them, right? This was first of all 2 by 2, and then all 4 of you, and even when they got in the ship, they all kind of got into their little positions, like it was very much like Voltron or Power Rangers, like people kind of, I don't want to say they knew what to do, but they kind of knew where to go. So I feel like that whole sequence was just a great way to cap off this episode of just showing their growth, showing their advancement from just being random kids to being like junior adventurers, right, or something along those lines. So yeah, I thought that was a great scene. I really enjoyed that compactor escape English.
I like the subversion of that because you and I we're people who watch a lot of TV shows and movies, so you kind of gain this sixth sense to kind of generally understand the direction a narrative is going, right? Like, oh, this is probably going to happen. This is how they
Mm.
will escape. I was legitimately like, how are they going to
Oh
escape? Because
yeah.
at one point, like, I'm like, okay, the front of the ship is crushed now. Like, it's
Yeah,
already
like
crushing the
yeah,
ship.
yeah,
Like, even if you escape, how are you going anywhere? Because,
yeah.
before it was a point where I thought, oh, they're going to escape just before it reaches. But I'm like, okay, now we're getting crunch
Nope.
time. It's
Yeah,
really
like
actively. So
like
I'm like,
proper
how?
crunch.
Right. So, like, the ship is destroyed. So even if you free yourself, what's happening? So I really enjoyed it because I didn't think, oh no, the whole front is a facade. We're just because you can even tell it's the actual ship is smaller, right,
Hmm.
than it actually appears to be. So when it
Hmm.
pulls away, I was like, two things went through my mind when it does that. I was like, one, I was like, that is fucking awesome. Two, I was
Yeah,
like, I would be so pissed if I already purchased the like Lego or the toys for the original version and it doesn't
that's so
open
funny.
apart. I'm like,
That
"What do
is
you
so
mean? I'll be
hilarious.
ripped
Like
trying to pull the outer layer of my toy to
break your
see."
toy.
It's like,
Such an interesting thought.
it's like in The Mandalorian, right? When he had his original ship for like 3 episodes and then they just
Mm,
destroyed it,
on
just
sudden,
blew
yep.
it up. But
You're
he was
like,
selling toys and like, "I just bought this
"Uh,
toy and then now the ship is destroyed." And it's not even like that same ship's gonna get rebuilt. It's a new
no, not
ship
at all.
now.
Completely gone. Like, but hey,
It's
it's an
completely
antique,
gone.
I guess, vintage.
Right? But now they should make a version that can release it. Sure, like you press a button, it
Hmm.
kind of like releases it out. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, actually.
One thing I liked as well, I think doing something like this in a narrative like this is can be very iffy, but I think it worked when Jod is doing the speech and they go into the kind of like the pirate shanty song, singing
Hmm.
the song of Tech
Yeah,
Reddit.
yeah,
I thought that was really well done. Like I was into it. I was like, yeah, it felt like piratey, and even
yeah. It
like
wasn't corny.
right, it wasn't corny at all. It felt like the pirate vibes of it all. And even like you mentioned when they threatened him with the airlock, it feels like the space pirate version of walking the plank. Right. So I think they've done a very good job of
Hmm.
kind of giving us the parallels. So that's
Yeah.
why it works. And one of my hopes for this show or after the show is done is I hope narrative of pirates becomes a bigger thing in Star Wars
Mm.
because it's kind of been there, but more in the animation. And I
Yeah.
feel like they what they try to do with the bounty hunters narrative in Star Wars, I think could be better served with pirates. Because I think
Yeah.
in Star Wars, the bounty hunter narratives have always been somehow around the bad guys, right? The bad
Yeah.
guys hire the bounty hunters to do the thing.
Do something. Yeah.
Whereas so at the end of the day, the antagonist is still the Empire. The bounty
Yeah.
hunters are more like middle ground. They don't care. It's just who's
Yeah.
paying you. Whereas I'd love to see a threat. I think the pirates have a opportunity to be like a future
Been
narrative
third.
threat
Yeah.
that's not the Empire. Like not
Yeah.
every story has to be this massive galaxy spanning narrative, right?
Yeah.
It can still have stakes but be small. And I hope
Small
this show
scale.
kind of showcases that, right?
Yeah.
Because not everyone has to be Thanos level. You can have
Oh,
some
no,
Zemos
agreed.
in there, things like that, right?
No, for sure, for sure.
And I think Star Wars is kind of missing that, a villain that's not connected to the dark side, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree, and it's not. It's a little refreshing, like you're saying.
I think anything else that we haven't mentioned?
No, that was it for me. I think again, great episode for character advancement and
Yes.
dynamics, and really looking forward to how they choose to close out the next 2 episodes.
Yes, I'm excited to see where it does end up and what happens when all these characters come together in that kind of like standoff and see. And any mysteries, we still don't know who the supervisor is. Maybe the supervisor or Tech Renard, or are they the same person?
Yeah.
We shall find out.
Dum, dum,
What
dum.
do you nerdies think? Find us on social media at The Nerdy Bunch. You can also find us an email, thenerdybunchpodcast@gmail.com. Give us all your theories, your thoughts, and recommendations for shows that you might want us to watch and review, as some of these shows we're reviewing right now are coming to an end in the next few weeks. Though, that being said, we have a couple of shows in the pipeline. I'll give you a teaser. One of them is Marvel related. One of them is an Apple TV sci-fi series returning for season 2. So stay tuned for those. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, David.
My name is English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch review for Skeleton Crew. And as always, Andrew,
Keep it nerdy.
peace.